They laughed at her accent, not because they didn't understand her, but because they thought it made her small. She stood at the gate with a calm smile, boarding pass tucked between her fingers, the kind of posture that says, "I have time." She wasn't in a hurry. She never moved as if she had to prove she belonged. She simply belonged. Seat 2A, business class. A short haul flight, but important eyes were on this route today. The airline had teased major leadership news to the press hours before takeoff. Airport gossip pinned it to a CEO transition. No one knew who. Everyone assumed they'd recognize the face when they saw it. They didn't. She stepped into the cabin quietly, greeted the attendant with a warm "good morning" and a lilting West African cadence that felt like music over the white noise. The smile she received back was practiced, the kind you put on autopilot after the 6th flight of the week. Row 2, window seat. She placed her tote beneath the seat in front of her, smoothed her jacket, and looked out where the tarmac shimmered under noon sun. The murmurs began before the door even closed. Did you hear her ask for help with the bag? That accent, where is she from? I mean, business class? Laughter, soft but sharp, the kind meant to bruise without leaving fingerprints. She heard it. You'd think she didn't, but she did. The attendant came back down the aisle, crisp uniform, glossy smile. "Would you like something to drink before takeoff?" She looked up with warm eyes. "Yes, please. Tea, if you have it." "Tea," the attendant repeated, but clipped the word a little too short. "We have English breakfast?" "That's perfect," she said. "Thank you." The attendant turned, and 2 steps away she mimicked the vowel, just subtly, barely, enough to make the other attendant laugh. The sound landed like a coin on a glass table, bright, tiny, dismissive. It bounced once and disappeared, or so they thought. The safety video rolled. She watched, nodding politely, even though she could have given the briefing herself by heart. On the other side of the aisle, a man in a navy blazer glanced at her and offered a small, apologetic smile. The "I heard that and I'm sorry" smile. She returned a calm nod, as if to say, "It's all right. I've learned to sieve noise from signal." At 30,000 feet, everything looks smaller. The skyline, the tarmac, even careless words. But some words, they grow teeth. They follow you down the aisle and back again. Service began. Row by row, silver carts, practiced hands. When the attendant reached 2A, her smile was different now, looser. "Tea?" "Yes, thank you," she said. The attendant placed the cup, then leaned to her colleague in the galley and repeated "tea" again, rounding the sound, softening it, performing the vowel like a party trick. The other attendant covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Someone a row back chuckled along, not even sure why, just caught in the undertow of casual cruelty. The woman in 2A lifted the cup. The steam fogged her glasses for a breath and cleared. She took a slow sip and said nothing. Three rows behind, a college kid had his phone out, not to film her, but to film everything. He narrated everything he saw to an audience he imagined would one day care. The comments would later say, "You caught the moment the world changed." But he didn't know that then. No one did. Some people earn silence. Hers came easy. She read a few pages of a slim book, the spine uncreased. She underlined a line with a pencil and smiled as if she'd just made a promise to herself. She reached for her tote and pulled out nothing more than a small notebook. No logo, no initials, just paper waiting to be thought on. Another whisper floated over the aisle. Probably her first time up here. A different voice answered, "Polite though, I'll give her that." The first voice a little harsher, polite and loud. They laughed again. She kept reading. Seatbelt chime, light turbulence. The captain's voice came on to say the usual, some bumps, a soft landing ahead, a thank you to the crew who kept us safe. The attendant, the one who'd clicked the vowels, braced a hand on the headrest in front of 2A and repeated the captain's message, then looked down. "Everything all right here?" The woman met her eyes, kind and steady. "Everything is all right. Yes, thank you for taking care of us." The attendant hesitated. The words were simple, but they were also something else, a mirror. In the cabin's small theater of social gravity, tiny acts pull hard. The man in the navy blazer cleared his throat. "I'm sorry about earlier," he said quietly. "Some people forget their voices carry." She looked at him with that same steady warmth. "Thank you," she said. "I've learned when to hold what matters and when to let noise pass." "What matters?" he asked before he could stop himself. She set her pencil in the crease of the book like a bookmark. "Timing," she said. The plane began to descend. The city below sharpened into rivers of steel and glass. At the gate, movements changed, deliberate, brisk, almost theatrical. 3 black SUVs pulled to a quiet stop. A red runner unfurled like a tongue of color on gray concrete. Camera crews assembled, someone adjusted a microphone, someone else checked a name placard again, nervous hands smoothing paper that had no wrinkles to begin with. Inside the cabin, rumors travel faster than Wi-Fi. Who's arriving? Heard it's the new CEO. CEO of who? Of us, the airline. Heads turned, scanning. Eyes sought expensive watches, high-class shoes, the vocabulary of power. No one looked at 2A. The plane kissed the runway and rolled. Applause fluttered and died. She closed her notebook, tucked it away, and straightened her jacket with a single, unhurried motion. The attendant, who had laughed earlier, stood poised at the door, smoothing her hair into place, face arranged into a smile that now trembled at the edges. She didn't know why she felt nervous, only that she did. The door opened. Cool air rushed in. The first-class curtain was drawn aside, and the front rows began to stand. The woman in 2A stayed seated for 1 breath, then 2, then rose with a patient grace, the kind that says, "I won't be rushed into my own moment." She stepped into the aisle, and the airport, the cameras, the executives, the very air shifted. The chairman himself stood outside the door, framed by flashbulbs. His eyes searched and found her as if there had been only one person to greet. He extended his hand. "Welcome," he said, voice careful with significance. "Madam CEO." The cabin went still. You could hear the soft intake of breath from row 3. The phone camera in row 5 jolted, then locked in like a compass finding north. "Madam CEO." The attendant's smile cracked. Not visibly, not for the cameras, but she felt it fracture inside, like ice breaks under a boot. She stepped back without meaning to. The woman took the chairman's hand. "Thank you," she said in that same warm cadence, the same music in her vowels. "Shall we?" They stepped into the jet bridge together. Reporters called her name, the name no one in the cabin had bothered to ask, and she turned with an easy wave. "Madam CEO, how does it feel to take the helm today? Do you plan a culture reset? Will there be changes for the crew?" She paused. You could feel the entire cabin lean toward the open door, eavesdropping as if the words were a weather report for their own futures. It feels like landing after a storm. As for culture, yes, we start with respect. We continue with excellence. The chairman nodded, pleased. Executives flanked her like parentheses, not to contain her, but to frame the moment. Inside the cabin, silence held. The attendant stared down at the tea service, hands suddenly too careful. The man in the navy blazer exhaled, a sound halfway between a laugh and a prayer. The college kid whispered to his phone, "Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this?" The boardroom waited on the other side of a brief hallway and a lifetime of assumptions. Nameplates stood at attention. At the head of the table, one with her name in clean black letters. She didn't sit right away. She walked the perimeter once, reading faces more than agendas, presence steady as tide. When she finally took the chair, it wasn't conquest. It was fit, as natural as a hand finding its own glove. The chairman began the introductions, as if the room didn't know. He thanked her for choosing to lead. She smiled at that. Choosing to lead is a phrase people use when they've never been told to step aside. A communications director slid a tablet forward. "We've had an incident on board your inbound flight," she said carefully. "A video has already surfaced. It's gaining traction." There it was, the clip. 43 seconds, angled from a seat 3 rows back. Her request for tea, the mimic, the smothered laugh. The caption, "Business class comedy." The comments were already rewriting the headline, "Business class consequences." The room waited for her to show anger. They were ready to follow her anger into a purge. She didn't give them that. She looked at the screen, then looked up. "Two things," she said. "First, we operate on respect, not fear. Second, I will not let our story be told by a thoughtless moment. We will define it, gracefully, clearly, quickly." The communications director nodded, relief visible. "We'll draft an apology. We will deliver a standard," she said. "Bring the head of cabin services. I'll speak with them now." In the smaller room off the boardroom, the one with glass walls that leaders use when they intend to be seen, she met the head of cabin services, a woman with tired eyes and perfect posture. The new CEO didn't speak of punishments first. She spoke of altitude, of what it means to fly people who are, at any moment, carrying entire worlds inside them: fear, joy, grief, ambition, and how the cabin becomes a temporary home for all those worlds. "Your people," she said, "are hosts of the sky. Hosts honor every guest, every voice." The head of cabin services swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." "Training changes," the CEO said. "Today, language, bias, de-escalation, dignity, not as a checkbox, as a daily practice." "Yes, ma'am." "And the crew from my flight?" the CEO asked, voice soft but shaped like a line no one should cross. "We'll remove them from duty pending review," the head said quickly. "We'll address—" "You'll coach them," the CEO said. "Then you'll decide if they understand what they carry when they put on that uniform. If they don't, they won't wear it again." Back in the boardroom, the PR statement was ready, clean and unadorned. "We failed to extend dignity to a guest today, our own CEO. We will not fail again. Effective immediately, we are instituting a culture standard. Respect is not optional. It is our flight plan." She approved it with a small nod. "Now make it live everywhere," she said. "Not just on our feeds, in our lounges, our gates, our safety cards. If we can print 'Insert the metal tip into the buckle,' we can print 'Respect every soul in your care.'" By sunset, the clip had moved from the kid's phone to millions of devices. Hashtags bloomed. News anchors used phrases like "teachable moment" and "culture reset." Comment sections, those stormy seas, were for once almost clear. A chorus of "about time" and "this is how you lead." But the world's noise was not her compass. She returned to the terminal where the day had begun and walked to the very gate she'd boarded from. 2 attendants stood there, braced for a reprimand they might never return from. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't recite policy. She told them a story. "My grandmother taught me English under a mango tree," she said. "She said, the language in your mouth matters less than the light in your eyes. Today, you dimmed your own. For what? A laugh? A habit? You deserve better of yourselves than that. So do our guests." One of them, the one who'd clipped the vowel, had tears standing, bright but unshed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't think." "That is exactly the point," replied the CEO gently. "Think, then speak. Or better yet, listen. Every person in this jet bridge is dragging a suitcase you can't see." They nodded. She left them with dignity intact and a standard set like a North Star. Days later, she held a press conference, not to stoke the fire, but to set the temperature. Cameras blinked like mechanical fireflies. Reporters jostled for angle and air. She stepped to the mic and waited for the room to quiet itself, a skill she'd earned by learning when not to fill silence. Then she said, "Respect costs nothing. Disrespect can cost you everything. We are an airline. We lift people. That begins before the wheels leave the ground. A reporter called out, "Was today personal?" She smiled with her eyes. "All leadership is personal," she said, "but this is bigger than me. This is about who we are at 30,000 feet and at the ticket counter. It's about every accent and every passport and every pair of eyes that looks to us to treat them like they are, in fact, human." She stepped back. The chairman looked prouder than any headline could capture. In a small office afterward, she finally let herself exhale. The city glowed outside, sequins scattered on black velvet. She opened her notebook, the plain one with no logo, and wrote one line: "Culture is not what we write, it's what we repeat." She closed the book, slid it into her tote, and turned off the light. People would keep telling the story. They would say a CEO arrived and humbled an airline, but that wasn't the real story. The real story is that power had been in 2A the whole time, not because of a title, not because of a paycheck, because true power doesn't shout to be seen. It chooses when to speak, and when it does, the room rearranges itself around the truth. They laughed at her accent, and then they learned her voice was the one that would decide how high they could fly. SFX, gentle whoosh, like a takeoff heard from far away. Respect everyone. You never know who's watching or who you're becoming in their story.